Kanye West has admitted to an incestuous homosexual relationship with his male cousin when they were children, up through their teenage years. Really awful, really terrible stuff.
Remember the moment when you thought Kanye West had already reached peak overshare velocity and nothing short of a small asteroid could push the man any further off course? Brace yourself, because our favorite headline hurricane has whipped up a fresh Category 5 confession. Apparently, back in the day, young Kanye and his male cousin turned mom's hidden stack of glossy magazines into an educational workbook, and, in a feat of adolescence worthy of a Greek tragedy, graduated.
I told him we wouldn't look at dirty magazines together. Perhaps in my self-centered mess, I felt it was my fault that I showed him those dirty magazines when he was 6. And then we acted out what we saw.
Their extracurricular studies into a bona fide incestuous relationship that staggered on into their teenage years. Yes, you heard that right. While the rest of us were busy fumbling through algebra, little Ye was collecting trauma trading cards in the attic. And now, decades later, he has graciously decided to gift the entire internet with every sordid page. Somewhere, a therapist is popping champagne at the thought of a 3-year waiting list, while the rest of Hollywood politely pretends to clutch a single strand of pearls before sprinting to tweet about bravery and raw honesty.
It says, my dad had Playboy magazines, but the magazines I found in the top of my mom's closet were different. What exactly does he mean by that? Does he mean they were more perverse? I don't know exactly what he means by that.
Naturally, Kanye could not merely bare his soul in a quiet corner, because this is the man who live-blogged his own presidential bid and once photobombed himself by marrying his partner in a skin-tight stocking. Instead, our undeniably troubled protagonist released a song called Cousins, in which he manages to mention almost in passing that the very same cousin is now serving a life sentence for murdering a pregnant woman.
He says, the song is called Cousins, about my cousin that's locked in jail for life for killing a pregnant lady a few years after I told him we wouldn't look at dirty magazines together anymore.
Because when Kanye writes a track, the murder rap is just background flavor text, like optional DLC in a video game. The real boss battle in his mind remains those illicit Playboys he found at the top of mom's closet, which somehow mutated into the Voldemort of glossy periodicals, cursing his entire life trajectory. One can almost hear Sigmund Freud screaming for royalties. Yet in Ye's universe, magazines wield the narrative power of dark magic.
You do kind of feel bad for Kanye, and you definitely feel bad for the cousin. You definitely feel bad for the lady that the cousin murdered and the kid that the cousin murdered, and you just really feel bad for everyone involved in this culture.
Apparently, flipping through centerfolds at age 6 was the big bang that blew his moral compass into several unrecognizable pieces. Forget personal agency, genetics, or the fact that millions of teens discover the same contraband without later parading around in shoulder pad fetishes. No, the villain here is high-contrast ink on paper. Somewhere, a stack of National Geographics is filing a defamation lawsuit. Cue conservative commentator Michael Knowles, who, upon hearing Kanye's confessional aria, immediately leapt from moral outrage to sponsored segue faster than you can say hillsdalecollege.edu.
Probably his cousin would really traumatize anybody and have seriously messed up his life.
In a single breath, he condemned the degeneracy of modern culture, declared magazines the gateway demon to society's downfall, and then shilled free online theology courses like a televangelist hawking holy water. You have to admire the dexterity. One moment we are knee-deep in Ye's traumatic attic, the next we are time-traveling through the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. Apparently, the only treatment plan more effective than therapy is watching a lecture on Cicero in 4K.
Kanye West, some years ago, tweeted out, said, he ruined my marriage. It took my marriage from me.
Of course, Knowles' real climax arrived when he argued that if magazines alone could corrupt Kanye, then internet videos will surely turn every 8-year-old into the Marquise de Sade. He demanded strict age verification laws as though Border Patrol-style CAPTCHA. Pop-ups will keep all the wide-eyed children safe from the digital abyss. The rhetorical whiplash is so severe you might need a neck brace. But don't worry, Hillsdale probably offers a free course on chiropractic fundamentals.
Finding magazines impelled Kanye West to commit really traumatic acts that have obviously traumatized him.
While pundits posture and the commentariat combusts, Hollywood executives are quietly printing authenticity tokens, praying their own skeletons never tumble from the walk-in closet of shame quite so loudly. Meanwhile, the streaming service algorithm lights up like a Christmas tree, sensing fresh bait for docuseries pitches. Picture it now. West of Innocence. From Playboys to Paranoia. Dropping in 8 binge-worthy episodes, each featuring slow-motion reenactments of a traumatized child discovering forbidden literature under a fluorescent heavenly glow. Expect soft-focus interviews with second cousins twice removed, artfully lit tears, and a last-minute cameo from a potted fern that once stood in the same hallway as Kanye's childhood bedroom. Because if there is one rule of the modern content factory, it is that pain, once bottled, must be carbonated and sold as premium subscription fizz.
Just totally poisoned his brain. This has poisoned the minds of many people who are exposed to at a young age.
Lost in this spectacle is the cousin himself, currently tucked away behind bars, presumably bewildered that his private horrors are now trending on TikTok. The song leaves him nameless, a tragic footnote overshadowed by Kanye's fight against the tyranny of lingerie pictorials. Even the pregnant woman he murdered receives fewer syllables than the magazine stack. That alone tells you everything about celebrity storytelling priorities. Victims fade to grayscale so the protagonist can bask under color-graded spotlight. It is the kind of moral calculus only Hollywood could applaud, reduce a heinous crime to a narrative garnish while turning glossy paper into the main antagonist. One might wonder how the victim's family feels about serving as a narrative aside, so Kanye can lament his lost innocence.
Companies will stop doing business in whole states rather than comply with age verification laws that are intended to make sure that kids don't look at.
But hey, empathy rarely scores as many streams as sensationalism. And then there is the thorny question of oversharing itself. Once upon a time, confession took place in a shadowed booth, whispered through a lattice to a priest who, crucially, did not publish the transcript. Today, we hit record, sob into ring lights, and call it healing content. Kanye is merely an extreme example of the impulse we reward daily: turn trauma into currency, monetize misery, build personal brands on unfiltered anguish. Therapists may suggest processing in private, but brand strategists know tears drive clicks. Somewhere inside an algorithmic black box, anguish is assigned a higher CPM. The louder the overshare, the better the sponsorship deals, and the more likely someone will call it important conversation rather than voyeurism dressed in virtue. Yet, for all the voyeuristic glee, there is something undeniably unsettling about the speed with which Kanye's confession was weaponized, instantly, fueling moral crusades, content farms, and ad reads. Within hours, the narrative had splintered into 1,000 think pieces. Some labeled Kanye a cautionary tale of broken masculinity, others hailed him as a wounded prophet illuminating the perils of early exposure to adult content, while a few simply memed him into yet another punchline between fish fillet tweets and fashion misfires. The man's pain became a cultural smoothie, blended with ice-cold cynicism, and served in eco-friendly plastic cups by every influencer with an opinion quota. In an odd twist, the only voices not cashing in are those of actual psychologists, presumably too busy preparing for the tsunami of new clients triggered by secondhand trauma, all of which begs the question, why do we, the audience, stay glued to the train wreck? Perhaps it is because Hollywood absurdity offers a reassuring metric. No matter how messy our own lives get, at least we are not confessing incest on national media in between haute couture runway appearances.
This is seriously depraved, dangerous stuff.
The more grotesque the revelation, the more self-satisfied we become in our relative normalcy. It is guilt-free schadenfreude, the kind of fast food that tastes deliciously wicked yet evaporates into cognitive indigestion moments later. And so we binge the circus, tweet fire emojis, then slide back into personal routines, slightly smug and weirdly refreshed. Meanwhile, Kanye keeps performing the emotional equivalent of Russian nesting dolls. Each confession cracked open reveals ever darker figurines within: magazine trauma, cousin trauma, marital implosions, aborted presidential fantasies, until it feels like there can't possibly be one more. And still, he lifts another lid. The shock factor dwindles, but curiosity remains parasitic, gnawing at the collective conscience. Surely there is one final, unshareable horror. Cue the notification bell. We will be there, popcorn in hand. Somewhere just off stage, PR teams are preparing the final metamorphosis, redemption arc. Give it a year and a half, maybe 2, and we will witness the grand unveiling of Kanye version 3, spiritually reborn, clad in off-white linen, quoting scripture and launching a wellness app.
Do we need to confess these kinds of things to everyone? Have you noticed this is a modern impulse to confess your sins to everyone?
Critics will call it performative, fans will call it growth, and merch lines will call it sold out. Cynics like us will tune in anyway, because we know the cycle never ends. It just rebrands. The only constant is that behind every tear-soaked confessional lies a queue of opportunists ready to harvest the clicks. Before the credits roll, let us not forget the moral panic crescendoing in the wake of this revelation. Lawmakers invoking Kanye as Exhibit A for why browsers should demand retina scans before loading any website with a questionable search history. The irony is thick enough to spread on toast. Adults unable or unwilling to police their own impulses now demanding state-mandated chaperones for cyberspace, all because a millionaire rapper blamed his catastrophes on paper pictures of ladies in fishnets. It is a carnival of misplaced responsibility, and naturally, it will play brilliantly on cable news. Expect split-screen debates, red banners flashing Kanye effect, and earnest anchors declaring the death of innocence, punctuated by commercial, breaks for luxury SUVs, and fast food value menus. And so we arrive at the exit ramp of this fever dream. Kanye West has dropped a confession that manages to be tragic, grotesque, and bafflingly self-indulgent all at once. Hollywood, ever the opportunistic ringmaster, has already begun turning the fallout into popcorn entertainment. Commentators milk it for outrage, academics will publish papers on parasocial empathy, tech giants quietly rewrite ad-targeting algorithms, and somewhere in middle America, a teenager shrugs, whispers mood, and scrolls on. If you have survived this roller coaster intact, congratulations! You possess either a cast iron stomach or an unhealthy tolerance for celebrity carnage. Either way, smash that like button like it owes you therapy, drop a comment if you have ever blamed your life choices on a magazine, and most importantly, stick around. The next scandal is just one overshare away, and Hollywood, bless its diamond-encrusted heart, never fails to reload the clown cannon.